Now you mentioned, Janie, that he was still working as a security guard.
Oh yeah, he worked security, yeah.
Did he have to wear a uniform as a part of that employment?
Yeah, he wore his uniform and he was always very proud, you know, to represent whatever company he worked for. And he was very particular about his clothes. He wanted his pants to fit perfect. He didn't want them hanging over. He wanted to look good, you know. And he had a friend that he worked with in one of the places, and that friend, he used to wear the company shirt, and then he would wear whatever pants, and then he would wear boots, and my husband would tell him, "Why are you dressed like that? You know, you look like you're gonna go fight the militia. You know, you don't dress like that for your work. You know, you have to be complete."
A very formal man.
Yeah, he was very formal.
From the military training, perhaps?
From the military training, yeah.
So I guess that day, what brought you to Depla was you were seeking out that seamstress, Miss Angie, for those alterations.
Yes.
Before you guys left your house to head over to Depla, were you able to reach Miss Angie to let her know you were coming?
No, I couldn't get her on the phone, but Angie's phone, she was always having problems with the phone. And I told Raymond, I said, she didn't answer. And Raymond said, well, it's okay, because you know her phone's always messed up. So let's just go over there. And we went ahead and took off. And when we got there, we parked not right next to the curve, but a little bit away from the curve.
Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
Let's sort of break that down. You said you guys drove there.
Yeah.
Do you remember what vehicle you guys were driving in?
Our Camry, our 2022 Camry.
Okay, so a 2022 Toyota Camry.
Camry, yeah.
Do you remember the color of that vehicle?
Yeah, it's sort of like a maroonish or reddish, like an apple reddish or something like that.
Okay, and who was driving the car?
My husband.
Okay. Now you say you parked a few feet away from the curb.
Yeah.
Do you know in front of whose house you parked?
Angie's.
So right in front of Miss Angie's house?
Yeah. A little bit away from the driveway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were presumably in the passenger seat?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
there
in the
anyone else in
passenger.
the vehicle?
No, it was just him and myself.
So just Mr. Ramon Nájera and yourself in the red Toyota Camry?
Yes.
Okay. When you arrived and the vehicle was parked in front of Miss Angie's house, what did you do next?
He asked me, he said, go ahead and get down, and if Angie's not there, ask him if you can leave the clothes there, and you can leave a sample of the lint. And I didn't take the clothes with me, but I went through the driveway, and I went to the door and I knocked. And her grandson entered the door.
Angie's grandson?
Angie's grandson.
Okay.
And I told him that, was Angie there? And he said, no, she's not here. I said, well, I have some clothes. Can I drop it off and she can work on it? And he said, yeah, go ahead and get the clothes and I'll give it to her.
Was it unusual for you to leave clothes in this fashion for Miss Angie to work on?
No, because there was other occasions that she wasn't home and we would just leave the clothes there.
How long was Miss Angie a seamstress for you guys?
God, for many years. We left Utah in 2005, and I think like 2007 and 2008, somewhere around there, we started going to her.
Had you been to Depla on many occasions?
Oh yeah, many occasions.
To give work for Miss Angie?
Yeah.
The times that you had previously been on Depla Street, do you remember there being any dogs or anything along those lines in the property next door?
Well, for a long time, there was a family, their names were Medina. They lived there for many, many years. And I don't know when the Morenos moved in there, But before that, there was no dogs. There was no dogs out there.
Okay. So on the occasions you had been there previously, you didn't have any reason
I didn't
to
see any dogs. But that day that I went, the dogs were on the Moreno's property.
Yes, ma'am. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. And I had just left the front door, and I could hear them barking, and they were barking very vicious. They would go from one side of the fence to the other, and they were just like barking terrible. I mean, when I turn around to look at them and barking like that, I didn't even think that they would jump over, So
at that time, were they inside the fence?
They were inside their yard. So when I left the front door, I walked to the driveway, and by the time I got to the gate, I turned, and the black dog, he was already climbing the fence with his paws. He climbed so fast that when I turned around, he was already going to the very top of the fence. So I kind of hurried to get to my car to open the door, but my husband was inside the car, but I think he was on the phone, because he used to like breaking news and all that. And he was busy, I guess, with the phone. And I got to the door as soon as I could, and I was gonna grab the door to get in the car, and the dog just came at me and started grabbing me biting my knee in different places. And I started screaming, and I was holding on to the door, and I was screaming, and I was like, Raymond, I said, the dog, and my husband heard me, and he panicked, and he just got out of his side, and he came over to my side, and with his right hand, he told the dog, leave her alone, and when he hit him in the head, the dog just let go of my knee, and he grabbed his wrist, and he knocked him to the ground. So the dog pushed me, and I fell down back, and I was between the car and the curb, and I was facing up, and my husband was against the fence, Angie's fence, and the dog was just pulling on his wrist. He just wouldn't stop, and Raymond was screaming, and he kept on saying, Janie, I can't take him off of him. I can't take the dog off of me, Janie. I can't. And the dog kept on pulling on his wrist. And we were screaming. I was screaming, somebody please help us. Somebody please help us. I mean, nobody would come out. And then finally, Angie's grandson came out. He came out with a rake. And he hit the dog, leave him alone. And he hit him. So the dog turned on him. And he knocked him down right in front of his door, and he was on him, and he was young. He pushed the dog away, and he ran inside.
Do you know if Angie's grandson, when he came out and struck the dog with a rake, do you know if the dog was able to bite Angie's grandson?
Yeah, because he knocked him down to the ground, he was able to bite him. So
you described for us, Mrs. Nakada, that you saw the black dog climb over the fence.
Oh yeah, he climbed like a ladder, like this, like that.
And then you tried to get inside the car.
Yeah.
And then you cried for help, and Mr. Nakada came right out to try to save you.
Try to help me, and the dog just knocked him down.
And at that point, you had already been bitten on your leg.
Yeah, I was on the ground facing up, and I was able to see him. And during that time, the dog grabbed my husband, and he started pulling him to the corner of the fence. And when I saw my husband, he looked lifeless, I guess he was trying not to put pressure, not to pull away from the dog. And the dog would pull him forward, and he was dragging him. At that time, Raymond was not saying anything. The dog was just dragging him. And when the dog dragged him, then the white dog came out of the fence, and
Let me pause really quickly.
Okay.
Jeannie. You said that the black dog broke off from your husband for a moment when he went after Angie's grandson with
Yes.
the rake.
Yes.
Did the black dog or the darker colored dog eventually go back to attacking Mr. Nafia?
He did. He did.
And at some point, you were just mentioning just now that you saw a white dog as well.
Yeah, the white dog got out of the yard.
Were you able to see how the white dog got out of the yard?
I couldn't see that far. I couldn't see, but the white dog, after my husband was dragged away from me, I mean, I could still see him, but he was a little further down. The white dog came over to where I was. I saw the white dog walking to where I was, and I went like, this dog is gonna finish me up. And she came over to where I was lying down, and I kept on saying, she's gonna probably attack me on my face or on my neck. And I started praying. I was like, Jesus, cover me with your holy blood, Jesus. You know, this dog's gonna attack me. She stood next to me, and I could see her on the corner of my eyes. And the dog just kept on looking at me and looking at me. And it was just like a miracle. She walked away. The dog walked away and went and attacked my husband. That's the one that pulled a line from him.
And that's why I was asking you, Janie, earlier about whether or not he had a line as a result of that.
He had a dialysis line.
So you witnessed the white dog attack your husband and rip that away from him.
No, I didn't, but, you know, the dog moved him more, you know. But, you know, that's the dog that pulled his line out.
You mentioned that you were crying out for help, Jane. Did help eventually arrive?
They did. The fire department. I was, you know, I had my hands bloody because the dog attacked my hands. And when the dog put his paws on me, when he jumped on me, he ripped tissue from my stomach. And I was bleeding. I was bleeding all over, you know, from my knee, my hands. And I felt somebody put their hands on me, and they told me, "We're here to help you. We're from the fire department, and we're here to help you. We're gonna try to put you on the stretcher." And I kept on telling him, "You need to help my husband." I told him, "My husband needs help." And he said, "We're gonna help him, ma'am. We're gonna get you in the stretcher and put you in the ambulance, and we're gonna get to your husband."
Janie, at some point did the fire department manage to get you to the ambulance?
They did. They did.
Do you remember if EMS personnel were there as well? Paramedics?
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah.
Do you remember the EMS treating you, helping you out?
Yeah, they put me in the stretcher and they started cutting all my clothes off because they needed to see all the areas that were affected. And they told me they were helping my husband. They were helping my husband.
Were you able to learn at that time where your husband was being transported, Mr. Nafia?
Yeah, they told me, "We're going to take you to University Hospital, and they're going to take your husband in a different ambulance to University Hospital."
Is that where you were transported?
Yes.
And do you remember, Janie, if while you were at the hospital, someone from San Antonio Police Department came and took photographs of you?
I don't remember. I was really out of it.
Fair enough. But you did tell us you were bitten on your leg?
On my knee, all over my right knee, the upper part of my leg, not just the knee, it went all the way up to the upper part.
Right. What about on your hands and arms? Do you remember any?
My hands, he bit me right here and on the side, both hands.
Now, Janie, when you were walking away from the door of Angie's house, did you show any sign of aggression or hostility towards those dogs?
No, I didn't. I just heard them barking, and I didn't really expect that the dogs were going to jump, that the dog was going to jump over the fence. That was not even in my mind. I didn't even think they were going to attack.
Now, Janie, this is going to be a tough question to ask, but I have to ask it. Is that the last time that you saw Ramon Nájera alive? Yeah,
that was the last time. When he was screaming for help.
When were you notified, or how did you find out that he had passed away?
They were treating me in the emergency room, and they told me that they were going to start me with rabies shots, and they said, we have to inject you with rabies shots. All the bites have to be injected.
That's a very painful process, isn't it?
Yes, he said, all the bites in your hands, wherever you got bitten, you have to have rabies shots. So they gave me a bunch of rabies shots, and then they had this orthopedic doctor. He came in, and he told me that they have to find out if the bites went all the way to the bone, and now we have to inject you with water. And he says it's going to be quite a bit. We have to get your knee full of water. I said, where's the water going to come out? And he said, from your wounds. If the bite went all the way to the bone, the water will come out through the wounds. And he put the water in there, and it was the most painful thing, because it stayed in there for a while, and my knee got huge. And then they had to take the water out with a syringe and take all that water out.
So very painful experience.
Very painful.
Mrs. Nájera, Jamie, how did the events that you witnessed that day, essentially the death of your husband of 40 years, as well as what happened to you, affect you? Has it affected your life?
It has affected me a lot. It was this tragedy that it stayed in me up to this day. I cry in the mornings. And I grab my pillow. And I said to myself, how could this happen to us, How could this horrible thing happen to somebody that was such a good person? And then there's times when I'm just like, during the day, a quiet time, that it crosses my mind. And sometimes I feel like, what could I have done for him? I was so helpless. Why didn't I try to get up? Why didn't I try to help him? I could have told him, get your other hand and get his eyes and pull him out or something, I kept on thinking of things that he could have done to get out of that situation.
So, Janie, it sounds a little bit like you might experience what's known as survivor's guilt.
It is survivor's guilt. It is. Every day I go through that.
Now, Janie, I want to leave you with this final thought, I suppose, from this direct examination. Were you able to provide some photographs to the DA's office that show Mr. Nájera as he was in life, and you've seen these before?
Yes, there were pictures that were sent to, because they had come out on TV. So they had pictures of him before.
May I approach the witness, Ron?
Yes.
Miss Nakata, Janie, I want to show you what's been marked for identification purposes. It's dates 61 through 64.
Okay.
Would you do me the kindness of taking a look at these photographs and tell me if these are the same photographs that you provided to us depicting
Yes.
Mr. Nakata?
Yeah, yes, they are. Yeah. See how he was always so happy with the grandkids?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was his mom's, she was 90 years old at this birthday party.
Same woman you described for us earlier?
Genevieve,
That's
dancing with him.
Do these photographs fairly and accurately depict what they show?
Yes, they did.
Your Honor, the state would offer states 61 through 64 into evidence, tendering to opposing counsel for inspection.
I was taken at our home. We were going to go, his brother was getting married, and we were going to be the witness. And it was a February wedding, so everybody was dressed in red.
What about state 62?
He was working at the VA hospital. He would work at the gate so that when there was somebody coming in, he would check their ID.
That's right. And is this as his part-time security job?
Yeah.
Same
One of the jobs that he had, because he moved with several companies, but it was always security.
Yes, ma'am. And this is the sort of uniform that you described for us earlier.
Yeah.
The kind of pants that he would have taken
Yes.
to his enemy. What about state 63?
This was the 4th of July parade at Leon Valley, and he was the one that would move everybody. He would tell the kids, "We're going to the 4th of July parade. You guys get ready," And he would always take the kids to different events.
And then finally, state 64, Janie, you told us that Mr. Nakata loved to dance.
Yeah, he did.
What are we seeing on state 64?
He's dancing with his mom. He always had to dance with his mom, the first dance with his mom, since he was the oldest.
Yes, ma'am.